Alright, so hell yeah. So with this boat, this is probably the first modification that I'm going to make, is I'm going to make an insert for the cockpit. And so we'll probably actually get rid of both these thwarts. Because even surfing at the wave the other day, what I have in my raft is I actually have a wrap of material glued in here and glued to the floor. So when my foot goes under, it only goes under like that much. You know what I mean? Where this, I can go farther, and now, like, I'm kind of stuck. Now, right underneath the thwart's not bad. But what happens is these corners are where you can really get your foot caught. And just the other day at the wave, like, my foot would get caught, and then I'm doing this. And so it's my recommendation on your R1 raft to have the valves, you know, facing you. Because I really do think this is the most dangerous thing that can happen, that can probably cause a fatality. Hopefully you can get some air to the side, because this did happen to me. My whole body, my whole leg got caught underneath my boat when surfing, because you're just at such steep angles, and I slipped under like a slip and slide. And then I was fighting to get to the side to get some air. I was able to get air, but I took a couple, like, half breaths, you know, but then I'm just like, hell no, we actually have to go back down. And when I was getting air, my leg was getting more wedged. Like, I couldn't get air and then pull myself out. So I actually had to get down in here and then pull my leg out from underneath there. But these cockpits are actually really small too, so if you got your whole leg in here, you know what I mean, it can still be very tricky to get your leg out. I was able to slide mine out, but I just think it's worthwhile to actually have these where you can just flip the valve, you know, and just push on that valve and be ready. The only downside is that you might knock into these. And so even on my boat, I take the valve caps off, so this is what it looks like. But it is kind of aggressive. Even on my boat, I actually might trim this off, you know what I mean, and just make it smooth as that. Hell yeah. That is just one consideration. Alright, so for this portion of the video, it's getting your foot caught in the sides of the boat. You know, like if you're actually using like pretty decent river shoes, you know, sometimes these are my river shoes, you know, and they're actually they're really easy to get wedged in things, you know, from like a foot entrapment perspective. But yeah, it just sucks to get foot entrapped in your own boat. And so in a cockpit, all I need is just to throw my foot this way, have it stop on something, and then just have a little foam ridge, you know what I mean? And so that's the insert that we're going to have is going to be that. And check this out. If you can see this, when my foot is, if I was to do a move to actually get to the front of the boat, and this is kind of why I typically don't really have my feet wedged in, because if I want to get to the front of the boat, this foot's going to come out anyway. And so if I do have it wedged in, and I'm trying to get to the front, I'm already here. And this also shows that the cockpit that I want is going to be tapered. It's not going to be these routed tubes. So I'm going to have, you know, like, kind of like this angle, maybe 45 degrees or 60 degrees, to where if my foot is like, let's say it's right here, and then I have that foam over the top, then I can just lean into that, you know, 45 degree angle. And what that would allow me to do, so basically whatever angle my leg can make when it's wedged in, that's the angle that I want this to be. And then so I can lean up onto the front of the boat from that position. And then I think it would be very useful to have staggered positions. So I'm going to have, like, this would be, you know, so typically you're back in this corner, and so this is going to be the farthest one back. But if I can lean my foot right here, I can only go 90. We've already talked about going like almost 45. But here there's very little room to drop a knee. And if you've made this just a little bit tighter, which you now can, because you know, you can get rid of volume down here. But the next foot position in the middle, I would want it to be farther in. So this gives more room to drop a knee. And then also a second place get even farther, you know, up on the bow. Because these bow moves of where you're up here, you know, to really get that boat off the ground. And it's different. When you're in the back, you can scoot farther back as much as you want. But when you're going for the forward, this is as forward as you're typically going to get. And then, you know, maybe just a little slightly forward. But in those positions, if you can actually get your weight up and over this knee, then hell yeah. But like even like right here, there's not any rocker until right here. And so this boat, I was able to use this rocker up front, but still I want that rocker to happen right through here. So even this raft could be a foot shorter, or even 2 feet shorter. And hell yeah. And then there's always, you know, pushing on the front to load that up. Okay, hell yeah. So dropping in my own cockpit, I could have those, you know, foam places for my feet. I would just eliminate any wedge points. And because it's foam, it could be way softer. And so if I do get wedged, I can maybe break through the foam even. You know, I was thinking about that, where then you just kind of re-glue it in. Because there is that. I've been, like my foot has been wedged in, and I'm getting thrown out, and your ankle's gonna break. You know what I mean? You're gonna pull tendons, where I just want, you know. All right, so the conclusion, I want to slide my foot very aggressively into these pockets, stop, and then either have a little foam, and it has to be kind of tall, like right here. I want to jam my foot this way, and then have foam up and over this. Jam my toe this way, and then have foam where I can pull up. And so basically, not going into these crevices, but basically just having your cockpit from, you know, this square drop down, and then lifting up on a chunk of foam. But the most important thing about that internal cockpit is then you can wall off your entire front and rear compartments to any water drainage, where the only water that should drainage would be in the cockpit. And so the cockpit itself would have drain holes, but that should be the only place that should take in water. And so that's the other aspect of an R1 boat that we're going to be working on. So then when you go plow, you know, in a surf wave, you plow the bow, you're not just taking water in over the bow that's filling the entire boat. It would just sheet off to the side or fill your cockpit, but we've just reduced the overall volume of the boat. So then that makes an R1 boat just like a paddle cat, where in a paddle cat, the only place that you're taking in water is in this cockpit. All right, hell yeah. All right, we're done with this video. Thanks for joining me. Booyah.